Hey everyone, welcome back to Corporate Decoder, the place where we take those super long, boring company reports and turn them into something you can actually understand. Today we are diving into a proxy statement that, let's just say, has some interesting connections between the company's leaders and its business dealings, a bit like finding out your family dinner is actually a board meeting. We are looking at First Guaranty Bancshares proxy statement. Think of this document as the company's way of asking its shareholders for permission to do certain things, like electing board members and approving executive pay. It's like a report card and a request for approval all rolled into one. The main event is the annual meeting of shareholders in May. This is where the big decisions get made and shareholders get to vote on important matters. If you own stock in First Guaranty, this meeting is your chance to have a say in how the company is run, kind of like voting in a school election, but with more money involved. First, shareholders will vote to elect the board of directors. These are the people who oversee the company's strategy and performance. Think of them as the school board, making sure the principal, that is the CEO, is doing a good job. This year there are 7 nominees up for election and it's important to know who they are and what they bring to the table. Next up is an advisory vote on executive compensation. This is where shareholders get to express their opinion on how much the top executives are getting paid. It's non-binding, meaning the board doesn't have to listen, but it's a good way to send a message if you think the CEO is making too much or not enough. Finally, shareholders will vote to ratify the appointment of the company's independent auditor. This is like hiring someone to double check the school's finances and make sure everything is on the up and up. In this case, the firm is Griffith, Delaney, Hillman and Lett. CPAs, PSC and shareholders get to say whether they approve of the choice. Let's meet some of the people running the show. Marshall Reynolds. The chairman of the board has been with the company since 1993. He has a long history in both public and private enterprises, which means he brings a lot of experience to the table, like a seasoned professor who's seen it all. Then there's William Hood, who's been a director since 1977. He's the president of Hood Automotive Group and also has experience with Entergy Louisiana Inc. His business management skills are valuable for overseeing the company. Imagine him like a successful car dealership owner who knows how to steer things in the right direction. Jack Rossi, with his CPA background and experience in public accounting, brings financial expertise to the board, like a super smart accountant, making sure the numbers add up. And Edgar Smith III, CEO of Smitty's Supply Inc., brings his leadership skill in business experience to the board. His achievements in business should be a plus for the company. On the executive side, we have Eric Dosch, the Chief Financial Officer since 2010. He's been with First Guaranty Bank since 2003 and has a background in lending and credit, which makes him the financial quarterback of the company. Michael Miner became president and CEO in May of 2024. He's got over 35 years of banking experience, which should make him a solid captain at the helm. Time to look at who owns the most shares. Marshall Reynolds is the biggest individual shareholder with about 15.9% of the stock. Smith & Hood Holding Company, LLC, together hold about 8.5%, and Douglas Reynolds has around 5.7%. So these folks have a significant stake in how well First Guaranty does, kind of like being the biggest landowners in town. Now, let's talk about money. The proxy statement breaks down how much the top executives made in the past couple of years. In 2024, Alton Lewis Jr. made total of $474.54. Michael Miner made $370. Part of their compensation comes from bonuses, both in cash and stock. It is up to shareholders to decide if they find these amounts acceptable. It is a bit like judging a talent show, but the prize is money. Here's a quick glance at the pay versus performance table. In 2024, combined summary compensation total for both POs was $840.82. The average summary compensation total for non-PEO named executive officers was $253 times the dollars on me comp 16s. The average summary compensation total for non-PEO named executive officers was $220.28. And net income was $6.9 million. A year before, in 2023, the summary compensation dollar for non-PO named executive officers was $210.20, named executive officers was $250.19, was $210,000, and the average dollar weight debt went 116. The average summary compensation total for non-PEO named executive officers was $210.8, and net income was $6.9 million. A year before, in 2023, the summary compensation total for non-PEO named executive officers was $210.28 and net income was $6.9 million. Non-employee directors also get paid for their service on the board, William Hood was paid $43,972. Marshall Reynolds received $30,827 and $550. Jack Rossi received $29,800. Bruce McAnally $27,550. Jack Rossi received $29,800. Bruce McAnally $27,550. Jack, looking for advice from experienced consultants. Well, this is where things get interesting. The proxy statement discloses several transactions between First Guaranty and people connected to the company. It's like finding out the school principal is also selling snacks in the cafeteria. And profiting from it, these deals aren't necessarily illegal, but they raise questions about fairness and potential conflicts of interest. The most important deal to highlight, the bank sold 3 properties to a partnership owned by directors, Reynolds, Hood and Smith, for $14.7 million. The bank then leased the properties back from this partnership and the school and Smith for $14 of interest. The most important deal to highlight, the bank sold 3 properties to a partnership owned by directors, Reynolds, Hood and Smith, for $14.7 million. The bank then leased the properties back from this partnership owned by directors Reynolds, Hood and Smith for $1.5. Another notable transaction is a $30 million subordinated note issued to Smith & Tate Investments LLC, which is controlled by director Edgar Ray Smith III. This is basically borrowing money from one of the board members. During 2024, First Guaranty paid interest of $1.9 million under the 2024 note. First Guaranty also paid interest of $1.90 million and $1.2 million for a Stepney under the 2024 note. First Guaranty also paid interest of $1.9 million under the 2024. First Guaranty also made $2 million First and fixed under the 22 note that they had with Mr. Smith. First Guaranty also uses Champion Graphic Communications, where Chairman Marshall Reynolds is chairman and holder therefor. First Guaranty also paid interest of $1 for printing services and supplies. Additionally, First Guaranty's automobile explains that these transactions are no less favorable to them than they could get from an independent third party. Finally, shareholders are asked to ratify the appointment of Griffith, Delaney, Hillman and Lett CPAs PSC as the company's independent auditor. Now let's see how much this company is paying its auditors. In 2024 and 2023, audit fees cost $335,000. Total fees paid for 2024 came out to $336,800, $5,000 a year before. Something to note is that Edgar R. Smith III and William K. Hood had 1 late Form 4 reporting 1 late transaction. Michael L. Minear has 1 late Form 3 reporting. Looking at First Guaranty, there are some things that stand out. The company seems to be doing okay financially, but the related party transactions raise some questions. It is up to shareholders to decide if the board members are acting in the company's best interest or their own. The company has a history of related party transactions, which means they need to exercise caution in decision-making process. Ultimately, First Guaranty Bank Shares is a company with a lot of history and connections. It is now up to shareholders to make their voices heard by voting on these proposals. That's all for today's Corporate Decoder. If you found this helpful, please like, comment and subscribe. See you next time.